Welcome. Happy Friday, Debbie. Yay! It is a birthday celebration today. Woo! I've got my little unicorn birthday blower thing, and I am sipping a peach bellini, fresh peach juice a la Instacart. And I'm excited to have you join me today for our live Q&A session. I also have some texts for your family to have. So welcome all of you. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of news and have a birthday celebration stuff. Oh, that's good. Okay. So today is our Natural Health Live show. It's our Friday Q&A live show. I have a lot of your questions. I'll have those queued up for the second half of the show. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about a bunch of research. I have a bunch of data that is just released yesterday, specific to children, the spread, potential transmission that children bring COVID, as well as just a lot of data here. I also, it's funny, this week I said in one of the shows that I haven't yet put out a show specific to pregnancy because there's not a lot of data. Well, we've got data. So for any pregnant ladies or any family members that are expecting, this is going to be a big deal. And I know the obstetric community is going to be taking heed. So definitely stick with me through the news part. And then our Q&A is just going to be a peppering of a whole bunch of questions. So welcome all of you. Thank you all for the wonderful birthday wishes. Can't imagine any other way to start my day with all of you celebrating. So thank you. Yay. Toast to all of you. Woo woo. It's always wonderful to celebrate another revolution around the sun. Quarantine style, of course, this year. So, okay, let's dig into some news, friends. The world is at 17.2 million, almost 17.3 million cases. The US is at 4.5 million cases. And yesterday we posted 67,000 new cases. That's a big day. Also, yesterday was another big day in fatalities for the U.S. We are now at 154,249 lives lost to COVID, and those are known fatalities. There are projections and speculations about the unknown that could make that number a lot higher. But yesterday we had a total of just over 1,200 fatalities from COVID. Some big news just across the board. Florida had another big day in fatalities. And as the U.S. has large fatality days, they're going to be centralized or centered to some of the major states that are having the outbreak. So California still is number one right now. It is very possible, the way Florida is charting, that Florida might overtake California in the next 2 weeks. So California posted over 10,000 positive new cases yesterday and 194 fatalities. They're at 485,000 cases. Florida is number two in the US, and they have 461,000 cases. They posted just under, 35 under 10,000 new positive cases. They did, however, have 252 fatalities. So 252 Floridians died of COVID yesterday. New York had a really small day. They're hovering around 414. Texas is potentially, over the weekend, Texas might overtake New York as the third largest population of COVID cases. Texas has 412,000 cases. They posted a whopping day, 17,842 positive cases. And yesterday they had a big day. They posted 17 as well. And I had speculated that maybe it was because of some testing. It does appear that there are more tests coming back, but of the tests, obviously the positive percentages are meeting or matching that 20, 25, 30% positive percentages of the tests being run. They did, however, have a smaller fatality day. They had an 84 total fatalities. Anything above one is too many. But also I want to highlight Georgia. Georgia surpassed New Jersey. So now Georgia sits in the number 5 spot in terms of highest positive cases in the US. And there's a big difference. So Texas is at 412. So number 4, Texas is at 412,000. Then the spread between Texas and Georgia being number 5, was 182,000. So there's a big difference and gap between the 4th and 5th spots. But it is important to note, especially for us here, I live in Georgia, and we're very cognizant of these numbers. Also, we have in Georgia, we posted almost 4,000 new cases yesterday and 29 fatalities. So I do also want to highlight some worldwide news. The Brazilian First Lady, she now has tested positive. Her husband, the COVID denier, had tested positive a few weeks ago. As far as I know, he's still dealing with the symptoms, and she has tested positive. So there's that community spread inside their home. Fiji has had their first COVID death. This nation has considered this a tragedy. They have a total of 9 cases on the island right now. And that might seem like not a lot, but when you're in an isolated island, and Fiji's kind of known as, the safe space, the 9 cases apparently are all linked to individuals going to India for medical procedures. And the individual who died had a heart procedure, and he contracted the disease while in India. So that is important to note. Vietnam also has seen a spike in cases. So we're seeing some potential increases in Southeastern Asia. Vietnam, they had 45 positive cases yesterday. And that's been thus far their biggest day. I will say that, for these 2 nations, their response is very telling. Fiji is absolutely devastated, and they are taking all measures to lock things down. Vietnam similarly has brought in a whole bunch of health professionals to help them limit the spread. And so this is just one of these scenarios where it's so critical that, when we just have become so accustomed to 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, soon to be 70,000 cases a day, we get desensitized to the nature that these numbers are overwhelmingly, tragically high. But it just draws attention to just the severity. So we cannot, my communication there is, we can't become complacent. We have to make sure we have as many masks as we feel we need, have more than a pair and a spare, have different ones for different activities. Make sure you've got your face shields as well. That has been something that they're starting to talk about, covering the eyes. You guys and I, we've been talking about that for several months now. For all of us dog lovers, I have some very sad news. This beautiful boy, Buddy, the first German Shepherd, first dog in the U.S. to contract COVID from his human owners on Staten Island. He suffered and had symptoms for over 3 months, and he just passed away yesterday. He was a 7-year-old German Shepherd, and for 3 months, he worked with multiple vets to try and help manage his respiratory issues. But this is Buddy. So that we have our first canine fatality here in the U.S. And he apparently he passed away on the 11th, but he has made the National Geographic magazine. So they highlighted that yesterday. So I wanted to put that out there. It's a bummer. And there are cases like Buddy who, animals are susceptible, particularly they've seen felines more so. Okay, so on just global news or just U.S. news, let me share with you. This is, if we look at our state, and this has been released, a combination of 3 kind of tracking resources like the World Health Organization, USA Facts, OID, and Bing COVID Tracker. This is the U.S., and they identify green through red. Green is good, red is bad. In terms of just the amount of spread. And if you guys see here, the Southeast is just all lit up. And you've got, Alabama, Mississippi, you've got Texas, and then out west and certain pockets too. But this is just very telling of where the virus is right now. And look at Alaska. Very interesting. Okay, so friends, do me a birthday favor. Will you hit the thumbs up button and hit the share button? So I appreciate that. I love Bellinis. It's one of my favorite alcohol beverages. And on my birthday, I'm going to splurge because this is about as splurging as we get. Hey, little man. Oh my gosh, you guys have to see my little happy birthday police. How cute is this? Aw, thanks, little buddy. You want to say hi to everybody? Oh, did you make this for mommy? Oh, cute stencils. Oh, pretty. Thanks, honey. Did you draw? Oh, did you sign that? Isn't that sweet? A little signed card. Are you taking your SWAT jacket off?
No, I know.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so that's really cute. He's so sweet. We have all sorts of stencils, and he's learning to write. So I don't know if you guys can see. That's his signature right there. How cute is that? So tonight, Brian has, he's going to do pickup at one of a favorite restaurants that we go to, where I actually will eat steak. We do consume plant-based products here, but I don't tend to cook them. It kind of grosses me out, and it's just not kind of our dietary focus. But if a good filet is made, and there are some places here that actually will contract with grass-fed growers, which is awesome. So he's gonna pick up some steak and some yummy stuff from one of our favorite restaurants. So that's the highlight of our day. And then the cookie cake from a hot cookie in Atlanta, who apparently she's blowing up. And she makes these awesome layered cakes, and it's not vegan, but they're dairy-free, cookie dough, icing, and ice cream and stuff. And so she is now apparently being contacted by a lot of the Real Housewives of New York, or not New York, but Real Housewives of Atlanta. And for all of you know, that's like my one true passion. I love Bravo TV. So anyway, that's what we're going to have. So that's a highlight. Okay. Okay. So getting back to some news. So I do want to highlight, Harvard, the Global Institute, put out a whole bunch of data yesterday. This came from their website, this particular map. And what they've identified is kind of a very simple way of assessing red, orange, yellow, green, red being, new cases per day. It's over 25 per 100,000 individuals. Orange is anywhere from between 10 and 25 out of 100,000. And then green is lower instance, but it's all about community-based spread. And so they put out this article. It's the Path to Zero. So researchers and public health experts unite to bring clarity to key metrics guiding the coronavirus response. And so they put that together. They also put out this new, this was posted in July, on July 1st. I didn't highlight this to you guys earlier, but it's very much related to the kind of risk factors. What they did identify is if there is a red, and let's just go back to this map. So this is based on epidemiologists, a whole bunch of scientific researchers through Harvard and a whole bunch of other universities. If you live in an area where there is red, their guidance, the way, like intense control effort needed, is stay-at-home orders are needed. Like that is the number one way of eradicating and getting things back to lower numbers. So, a Fiji-style response, a Vietnam-style response, where they have 9 cases, in total, or they have 40 cases a day. But what we're not seeing that. In orange is another thing where they highlight strategic choices must be made about which package of non-pharmaceutical interventions. So it could be stay at home, it could be viral testing, and contact tracing capacity that went above standards. And then they also have, if you're yellow, non-therapeutic or non-pharmaceutical interventions. So they highlight a little bit more about mitigation and suppression. And then they also talk about how many contact tracers does that area, does the state, does the county does the city need in the event that they are in a red? And so what they say is you need 30 contact tracers for every 100,000 individuals in your community if you are in a red zone. And then what you want to see in terms of the tracing time, you want to be turning things over in 24 hours. The percentage of contacts with symptoms that are traced. So this really digs into something that we're not really hearing a lot about is contact tracing. So this is kind of a flow chart of contact tracing in terms of just the efficacy of, person one and all the contact points and the impact to potential, 3 tiers of impact. So this is really, I think this is really interesting. I'll post links to this down below. But, this is where we are lacking. Our testing's a nightmare, but we are lacking also on the front of being able to mitigate this risk. So, that is what it is. I do want to highlight one of the things that has been brought up is that a lot of you have highlighted that you all are dealing with communities where you're going out, you're shopping, you're feeling a lot of anxiety because you're wearing your mask, but you also are noticing people aren't, and maybe they're shopping and these stores are supposed to be adhering to guidelines from the government, the state or local municipalities. And one of the things that we're seeing is sheriffs across multiple counties throughout the U.S. are refusing to enforce the mask laws and the mandates. And some of them are also permitting or encouraging armed vigilantes to work against the mask wearers or those communities, businesses that are employing these mandates. And apparently there's some sort of community body that they consider themselves. They're considered constitutional sheriffs, and they're sheriffs that feel that they are the highest constitutional authority in the county or in the country. And that's the first I've heard about that, but that is an underpinning politically that is happening in terms of why we're not seeing the mandates. I have to remove this pillow. This is a cute pillow I got for Mother's Day. Isn't that sweet? From Gabriel and Brian. My little pillows. How cute was he? A little baby. Okay. So that's very interesting. And that might be why you're seeing a little bit less strict, not guidance, but adherence to some of these, the mask wearing and the, stores that are employing that. There's definitely an undercurrent working against that. So I just wanted to highlight that. I read a little bit about that. But let's talk about the big news. So the big news right now is a research letter that came out in JAMA Pediatrics. And this focused on the nasopharyngeal, so the nasal swab, the COVID nasal swabs of patients that have mild to moderate COVID. And what they've identified is the nasal swabs of children between March 23rd and April 27th. Tanya Durant, 1999. Thank you. Happy birthday, Dr. Melissa. Cute emojis. Thank you so much. Mwah. Cheers to you. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love the live super chats. I'm grateful. Totally supportive of my channel. And thank you so much, Tanya. One of the things that they found in this particular study is that when they were swabbing the children, this is across the board. So they've got children, they've got different age groups. But what they've identified within the 18 and under, the community, the children that carry younger children carry more of the viral cells, RNA, than children older than 5. And what they've identified is that the younger the child is, the greater the carrying of these potential contagious viral particles. The quantity of greatness or the difference, the variance between an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old versus a 5 or under, it's 10 to 100 times greater the amount of genetic matter that they found on the swabs. Okay, so let me break that down. What that means is when we swab children under the age of 5, so like if Gabriel were to get a little swab and let's say he had COVID exposure and he tests positive, his swab versus an 8-year-old or a 17-year-old would have 10 to 100 times more of the COVID viral matter, the genetic matter, so the RNA or DNA. And what they identify is that these children, and there's another study that really it links perfectly up with the timing of this, but what they've identified is that children might not necessarily be susceptible themselves for a multitude of reasons, but they could very well be major carriers. And the 5 and under particularly could be the typhoid Marys, if you will. So the typhoid kiddos, in this case, the COVID kiddos, would be potentially the main carriers. So however the virus impacts them, they have some sort of immune response or a way of minimizing the impact amongst themselves, but they can spread it to other kids older. They can spread it to their parents, their teachers, their grandparents, aunts, uncles, other siblings. And they break down those values of the particulates in this study. So this is really fascinating. The viral load. So what we call, these viral particulates or the, viral nucleic acid, we call that the viral load. And younger children under the age of 5 have a greater viral load when we swab their nose. Now, the other thing, and I'll highlight a little bit more, but there are possible reasons for that. We'll go into that, but it does have a potential impact with schools reopening. And this is literally just 2 pages. That's it. Really, really small. They kind of give a breakdown of the age groups, but that's going to be really big. I guarantee this is going to be a hot topic today, unless something crazy happens. And who knows? There's always crazy stuff happening in the news, but that will definitely be of major concern. Now, there's a big study that came out in the Journal of Science, and it's really an obscure title, so you wouldn't necessarily just by passing through kind of understand what it says. But the title is Changes in Contact Patterns Shape the Dynamics of the COVID-19 Outbreak in China. And it talks about non-pharmaceutical interventions in China and daily contacts were reduced by social distancing. And then they talk a little bit about the interactions within households, homes, and that children, they look at children versus adults and susceptibility. So this is based on China particularly. There is also some information where they bring in some research. I believe they brought in research. Let's see, I'm looking at so it's Wuhan and Shanghai. So 2 kind of core areas in China. But what this particularly assesses is that kids were 1/3 to 1/2 as likely to contract the virus as adults. And the threshold on the age is 14 and under. So children 14 and under are less likely, 1/3 to 1/2. So 30 to 50% less likely to contract COVID when they were exposed to it, either in the household, because Shanghai and Wuhan both went into lockdown. So this was more focused at that particular area of transmission. Now, there are some gaps here. We don't have any specific study of their exposure in a school setting, but we do know in a home setting where, there are epicenters in Shanghai and Wuhan, highly dense populations, that they're seeing a lowered likelihood or a low susceptibility. Now, some of the reasons to hypothesize why children 14 and under might not be as susceptible. The first thing that we have hypothesized is that the ACE2 receptors, those are those enzyme receptors that are prevalent in the lungs, the heart, the brain, the kidneys, where we see the virus really take effect. These children might not have a great quantity of these ACE2 receptors, that as they get older, they have more of these enzyme receptors. So they might have a smaller quantity of receptors in total. That might be one. The other reason might be because they have children's immune systems. They are less likely to be immunocompromised. They're not old. So aging is part of that kind of degenerative aspect of autoimmunity, immune response, cell activity, the ability for the body to fight off and ward off the virus. As well as they might also have, better nutrition, and they don't have years of malnutrition. So there's assortment of potential reasons why children might be less susceptible. And their age might just be part of it. It might be an immune response. But those are some things being brought up by that particular study. So these two. Wow, talk about zingers on a Friday. These are big, especially as everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to do with schooling, virtual schooling, delays in school stuff. So the other thing that came out, let's see, that came out, and actually, this says June 26th in the report. So I might be incorrect in my timing of this, but the MMWR out of the CDC, they post a whole bunch of data, up-to-date information. They, I believe, updated the pregnancy research. But basically what they've identified is that among women with COVID, approximately a third, 31.5%, of pregnant women were reported to have been hospitalized, compared to 5.8% of non-pregnant women. So they've talked about COVID. If you're pregnant and you get COVID, you're more likely to be admitted to the ICU. And if you are admitted, you're at increased risk for ICU admission and receive mechanical ventilation. And they broke down some of the distinctions, race and ethnicity. It was not available for all. So not all participants in the study do we have that recorded, but of the ones that were recorded, 80% were recorded in terms of the race and ethnicity. 46.2%, the highest quantity of pregnant women who had more susceptibility to COVID were Hispanic women. And then non-Hispanic white were 23%, 22% non-Hispanic Black, and 3.8% were non-Hispanic Asian. So that is something I wanted to highlight. And that is an assessment from January 22nd to June 7th. So it breaks out a lot of specific information about the women. Some of the aspects with pregnancy is the diabetes. Gestational diabetes was part of an underlying precursor. So if a woman is having her second pregnancy, she's prone to gestational diabetes, that might be one of those underlying triggers with COVID. So, okay, so I want to now it's the Q&A time. So let me pull up your questions. I actually had a question from Gina. She's messaged me directly. So I'll answer her question. This is such a great question. She asks, I was wondering if you have any tips for people to stay hydrated and eat meals during work days during COVID. Normally, I like my coffee mugs and reusable water bottles, but I'm now worried about air particle exposure. No one is really talking about it. I am at home at the moment, but soon will be environments with many others. Thanks for the feedback. So that's a great question, because you don't always think about it like this little cup. It's open. I'm sure you can put a lid on it, but basically you can expect that if you have an open coffee mug, open glass of water, that there is the likelihood, because the aerosolized particles in your office space, that could very well be a potential point of transmission. It could be lower, but it's definitely possible. So I would recommend that you, and I don't have them here. Actually, I don't. You can have those to-go cups where they have the lid, and make sure you always have it closed. And then if it's been sitting there for a little while, make sure you wipe it before you consume the product. But that would be a really good way of reducing your exposure. So I thought that was a fantastic question, and something that is one I'm sure many of you might not have thought about, but definitely gives us a good something to consider. So, okay, now I want to go over to YouTube. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions on YouTube. Okay, so let's see here. Where did it go? Uh-oh, hopefully you guys are still with me. Oh, here we are. Sorry, my screen's. Okay, you guys are still with me. Okay. Okay, I'm working on the big computer now, so I'm back in the downstairs office today. Okay, so let's see questions. All right, so solutions for IBS. Good multivitamin for over 60 women. Is 50 score on vitamin D good? Okay, lots of questions there altogether. So IBS, I have a multitude of videos on IBS. It is very complex, comprehensive, and often individualized. There are different triggers for individuals depending on, their body, what their experiences have been, and the symptoms. Some people experience diarrhea. Some people experience constipation, cramping, bloating, gas. It all kind of depends. But a big thing with IBS is to clear up the gut microbiota. So definitely getting a good multiple strain. Probiotic is critical. Good healthy fiber. I love inulin, slippery elm. Sometimes if we've got a lot of crampy hot spots, aloe vera. But I definitely reference some of those videos because that's really, really specific. A good multivitamin for women over 60. I like Healthy Cells. They have an AM and a PM version, and they have one that is more on the anti-aging scale. So I would recommend that. As far as vitamin D, if your vitamin D is at 50. So the big question is, when you're looking at your lab values, there's going to be 3 lines on vitamin D. So you want to read the vitamin D3. You'll see vitamin D and then a few other, like in parentheses, little letters. But you want to make sure you're reading vitamin D3 and not the just basic vitamin D that they've analyzed. Sometimes there will be just big distinctions. So make sure you're checking vitamin D3. If vitamin D3 is at 50, that is in the moderate category. And you'd want to move it up to 85 at minimum. So there will still be some deficiencies and symptoms related to a vitamin D at number 50. Okay, so let me bring up Instagram. Okay, so I am using my computer. Usually I use my phone. Okay, so Instagram questions over here. Okay, we had 2 questions. Oh, I guess I have to log in. Okay, hold on. Let me log in real fast. Okay, so natural health resources. Okay, so 2 questions on natural health resources. Instagram. Okay, so Doreen Franklin asks, what can help a person with brain fog? Okay, so definitely supporting your adrenals. And I love Tulsi or holy basil and rhodiola. Those are 2 powerful adaptogens. They're really good at helping kind of clear off the cobwebs. Brain fog is often going to be associated to adrenal dysfunction or some adrenal imbalances. So that's definitely something that I would put in your mix on a daily basis. Okay, back to YouTube questions. All right, so Dawn, okay, so we have Celtic Sunrise. She changed her photo and picture. It's Dawn from California. Okay, would you discuss your thoughts on the safety of water fasts? So I'm not against fasting by any means. I actually would rather, instead of water, folks grab nutrient dense bone broths, green juices, spirulina drinks, and you can put your spirulina powder, but I would prefer you consume nutrient density in a fast. And some folks are pretty intense, like, water fast might be a day or two. Sometimes people are doing it for 10 days, but you want to make sure you are supplying your body with micronutrients, because without those micronutrients, you're going to cause stress to the body. You're going to potentially also add to additional deficiencies. And you can still achieve the fasting that you want and deliver your body the nutrient density. So I will be honest with you, I'm not a fasting expert. I don't live that lifestyle, but I do work with a lot of folks who do. And my focus is to really ensure that they're balanced in everything that they do. Okay, so let me go back to Instagram. All right, so Pau, hey Pau, she says, what can I do to quickly reduce my C-reactive protein? Is there a good supplement I can take, and will increasing vitamin D help reduce C-reactive protein? Thank you. Okay, so C-reactive protein is a marker of inflammation, and it is often indicative of cardiovascular and heart-related inflammation. So what we look at is if C-reactive protein is high, you might be more inclined or more likely to have a cardiac incident. So the overall assessment of C-reactive protein is an indication of global systemic inflammation within your body. And those are really easy to take. We run the blood spot test here. We send everybody kits now. Everybody's at home and everybody's taking all of their tests at home. It's very easy to do. And so you can get those values very quickly. But when you have an elevation, you want to pinpoint what might be causing the inflammation. But overall is dietary, eliminate all inflammatory factors, dairy, gluten, and any animal-based protein, any animal-based proteins can cause inflammation, especially in the gut. And then also really hone in on turmeric and ginger and curcumin, and focus in on reducing the inflammation. So there's a source, and then you want to eradicate the kind of leftover inflammation. We have a lot of free radical damage, so that's often in parallel with that. And I've talked a lot about that here in some of the videos, so I definitely reference that. Will vitamin D help reduce the C-reactive protein? It won't have a direct impact, but indirectly, vitamin D will support your cells and it strengthens them. So there's a possibility you might have some reduction in, the nature of the free radical damage. Okay, so more questions. All right, Pat, and I see a few other people want me to talk more about mammograms versus thermography. Mammograms concern Pat because it's radiation. Radiation can cause cancer. Seems to me thermography is preferable and safer. So yes, I have several videos. I think I have 2 videos on thermography versus mammograms. And being in the world of breast-related cancer and working with women who are in, different phases of their cancer recovery, post-surgical, I'm very tuned into mammograms. And there are an assortment of ways to analyze breast tissue. There are ultrasounds. There are 3D ultrasounds. There's the mammogram. We have thermography, which is a different type of technique. It's infrared type of assessment of heat. And thermography is one of these treatments, or not treatments, but an assessment tool. It's generally not covered by insurance, so that's one factor. It's not as prevalent in terms of the recommendation from, OBGYNs or breast health experts and oncology, breast oncologists, but it tends to be a really great preventative tool. So you can use thermography, you can get baselines where you do a thermal imaging scan. It's a thermal imaging. So just like when they thermal image your home, you can do thermal imaging, and you can identify heat sources and imbalances. You can also identify inflammation. And it's pretty fascinating. Like, you can see inflammation in a carotid artery, you can see inflammation in the bladder, the ovaries, the prostate. You can see vein inflammation. And it can give you a better idea of what all is going on within your body. So thermography can be whole body scan. It can be body specific, breast. With thermography, we can actually see cellular changes occur over time. And so that gives us the 6 to 8 year preventative tool to then make appropriate changes to eradicate some of the breast inflammation. And that can be, that is tracked. We know that thermography is much more powerful in that, where mammograms are sometimes a little bit more difficult depending on the density of your breast tissue. I have a whole breast course. It's my booby care course that I have set up that is meant to help women manage breast changes and enhance their breast health. So I definitely recommend that for all of you. I actually have a YouTube coupon code. I think it's YouTube 100. That gets you $100 off that course. So, but yeah, I love thermography. I love it too, also to analyze what else is going on in the body. Some of my patients will have thermography and it'll identify Hashimoto's where their labs were right on the edge or the doctors poo-pooed it, and you can fully see the whole thyroid gland is white. And you have different phases of colors. And so blue and green are usually good. I mean, if it's really darker blue, that might be a circulation challenge. So there's also ways to identify circulation patterns, vascular insufficiencies. It's very powerful as a tool. Okay, so more questions. Taryn G says, my mother seems to get a urinary tract often. Can you please tell me what can be the cause of this and what she can take to help this? She recently received 2 medications from her doctor. I know one was an antibiotic and can't remember the other medication, but she was told of any side effects to hurry to the hospital. She's 80. By the way, I'm totally against prescription drugs. Okay. So UTIs with older individuals can be, we have a $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Clyde. Hip, hip, hooray. Happiest birthday to you. Oh, I love the emojis. That's so cute. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Sorry, I was off the screen, so I didn't even see it, but thank you. Thank you. So Taryn, a lot of times our older population will get UTIs for an assortment of reasons. Sometimes it's kidney related. It might be diabetes in its orientation. Sometimes it's also just how well they are keeping their body clean and keeping their pH levels balanced. Also, one of the things is if they've changed their, underwear, they're wearing, some of the Depends pull-ups, which is really common. I mean, that's the reality. Sometimes, at 80, they might have little bladder incontinence. And so they might be wearing non-breathable underwear that could cause some imbalances. And then we see some bacterial disruption. But it's often going to be, you want to kind of identify the source. Why is there kind of frequency in the infections? It could be diabetes. It could very well be some pH elements. Also, she's taking baths sometimes in bubbles or different kind of solutions that can kind of change her pH. But also, it would be a good idea to have the doctor run her renal health, run the labs and analyze. And we found this out with my grandma. There's like 3 or 4 pages of labs. The second and third page was always the renal labs, and the doctor would never really turn the page. And when I got involved, I started having him looking at greater depth in terms of her labs. And we started to identify she was advancing in her renal health or the renal failure. And so definitely get that checked out. The second medication might be one that just kind of takes care of the burn and the irritation there. Okay, so let's see here. Instagram, I'm going to answer some questions. Okay. Grand Design. I have high-ish cholesterol and don't want to be on statins. Besides red yeast rice, do you have any other recommendations? I eat no meat or chicken and little dairy. It's genetically high. Okay, so big thing, free radicals are one of the reasons why you're having high cholesterol. So definitely you want to add in like alpha lipoic acid, CoQ10, and lower just your overall inflammation. So some turmeric tea or ginger tea on a daily basis would be beneficial. The other thing that I love there's actually a few things that I love for cholesterol. I love moringa. Moringa is really wonderful at balancing the inflammation. It's very high on the ORAC scale, which means it's a high antioxidant. Antioxidants will drive down that cholesterol. The other thing that becomes really critical is because the liver is involved in the synthesis and manufacturing of cholesterol. You want to really love your liver. So adding dandelion and milk thistle, dandelion tea is great. You can add some milk thistle drops in. I love that. So that's what I would recommend. So it's not just reducing the cholesterol. You want to get to the root. There's inflammation, and then the liver is probably dealing with some toxicity. Okay, so Shelly, hey Shelly Gage. Hello, Dr. Melissa. I'm desperate for some help with hot flashes. I'm 54, no cycle for 1.5 years. Hot flashes are making me so miserable. I'll try anything at this point other than cancer-causing hormones. Thank you for all you do for us. So, we've got a $15 super chat. Let's see, who did that? Oh, you guys are so sweet. Donna, hey Donna, happy birthday, Dr. Melissa. Thanks for all you do. Mwah. Thanks, Donna. Yay. Cheers to you. Woo. I love that. Thank you. I'm so grateful. Okay, so Shelly, the big thing here, I love recommending Efisoy. You can find it on Amazon. Efisoy is great for hot flashes. It has maca. It has a fermented, it's an Asian variety. So it's not even grown here in the US. It's not GMO. It's not nasty. It's a totally different type of soy. But it's a fermented soybean, and they extract this one particular element. It's called Aglamax. It's fantastic. It will stop the hot flashes and night sweats if you experience them too. It's great. That is really, really powerful. The other thing too for women, especially menopause, I love Shatavari. Shatavari is my go-to female hormone balancer. And then maybe even a little chase tree, but honestly, Shatavari and Efisoy would be my two recommendations. Okay, so Norma, hey Norma, is it true NAC could help reduce C-reactive protein? It can, depending on what all is going on. I will use NAC if we're dealing with like mast cell or really, really major histamine responses. So it can, yes, it can reduce it. It is not kind of the go-to though, but it can. Is turmeric okay with IBS? Yes, I have not seen it be anything that's harmful. And in fact, it can reduce some of the inflammation there. Okay, some more questions. Emily, 2 questions. Do you have any tips or suggestions on quitting smoking? My husband has tried Chantix. It can be very effective, but it makes him super sick, so he isn't motivated to take it. Okay, so question number 1, hypnotherapy. I love. My friend worked in my clinic for several years and does hypnotherapy. The big thing with quitting smoking is she always says you have to be at 85%. Like, are you 85% ready to quit? And if the answer is no, he's not ready. But if it is, then there are a lot of different ways to help. A lot of it is a stress reliever, and it is one of the hardest chemicals to kick as far as an addiction. And so, you might also want to, if he is smoking, have him switch to cleaner cigarettes. So you start to do the detoxing process of all those chemicals. It makes getting off of them a lot easier if you start to slowly taper them off of the bad chemicals. And, I am not a proponent of smoking, but let's just be realistic. People have habits that aren't always the healthiest, and there are certain ways to ease them out of them. So I would switch him to natural cigarettes. And it might be something he's just kind of like, not really a big fan of it. And it could at least start to get rid of those chemicals. Okay, question 2. Can you discuss cryotherapy and your opinions on it, specifically for targeting fat cells? I used to have vendors come in and try and sell me these machines. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think that at the end of the day, when we try and skirt the natural process of our body, eradicating toxins and fat cells, I see this too with a lot of my lipo patients. I don't now as much as I used to in Florida, but I used to Florida's plastic surgery center of the world. Like everybody's doing something to their body, enhancements, and particularly liposuction was huge. And BBL, the Brazilian butt lifts, are massive, where, gosh, these women would come in, their sides, flanks, the front, the back. I mean, everything would be lipoed and they'd be bruised all over. When you remove those fat cells, they show up somewhere else. And so it's this vicious cycle that they end up going back for more. And I really feel like, oops, sorry, somebody's calling me for my birthday. I really feel like there are better ways to burn fat. And so I actually like infrared, like sweat therapy. Infrared is wonderful for that. Detoxing and enhancing your own natural fat cell reduction process. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so I've got more questions. Gypsy Spirit, HBD Sugar. May you be, happy birthday, sugar. May you be filled. I'm like, what's HBD sugar? Happy birthday, sugar. May you be filled with love and laughter and God's many blessings. Thanks for all your hard work. Oh, thanks, Gypsy Spirit. That is so sweet. And Phyllis is saying FSOA is great. Been using it for 1 year. Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, it's awesome. I love that stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Oops, I'm typing. Okay, so let me go back to more questions. MICI, her birthday is on Monday. Yay. Denise, do you recommend a shingles and a flu vaccine? Why or why not? Okay, so on the flu vaccine, I'm a no on that. I'm not a big fan. I don't think the efficacy is 100%. The flu will never be 100%. I'd be more comfortable if it were in the 70, 75%, 80%. Most of the time it's not, you might get lucky 1 year, it's like 30, 35%. As far as shingles, now, yes, on the shingles is horrible. Once you get it, it's going to recur. It can be extremely debilitating. I get messages from people of all ages who have shingles. It gets billed right now as an older person's disease. That's so not true. Insurance does cover, I think 55 and older can go to Walgreens and CVS and get a shot. But for any of us, and I fall in this category, if you've had chickenpox, you have the potential of getting shingles. And I think it is so debilitating. It is worthy of getting the vaccine. And if you've had it, comment down below and tell everybody how awful it is. It is god awful. It is a horrible pox virus, and shingles is in the pox virus. It causes extreme intense nerve pain, and then that lasts. And then as you are having the nerve pain and your lymph nodes swell, you get localized swelling, then you'll get blistering. And sometimes it can be like, I'll have people will be on their face, up in their eyes. I've had it close to the lips. Most of the time it's the torso. It gets it. And it'll be like around the breast, around the whole back. And it is so painful. People they experience pain by just wearing clothing. So that offsets, like not having that, not being down and feeling awful for weeks is worthy of a vaccine. So I am, there's definitely a place, and this is totally. So I plan on having it at some point when things go back to normal. I go in, but definitely, when I was working more with people, there's definitely more risk. Folks that would come in with shingles, but. And for that reason, when I was pregnant, if that was one question, if I'd screen my folks coming in, if they had shingles, I would not treat them. Just, being pregnant is uncomfortable, but then pregnant with shingles, no, thank you. Okay, so I'm going back to YouTube. Okay, so now I'm going to your live questions, and thanks everybody for joining me. This is so fun. Yay, cheers. For any of you joining, I'm drinking, this will be the only time you see me do this, but I'm drinking peach Bellini. So peach and champagne. Which actually Prosecco. I love this one, Prosecco. That is so delicious. Okay. Emily said her mom first had shingles when she was 17. They're around her eyes. Oh God, that's awful. Yeah, it is terrible. And thank you all for the birthday wishes. I'm so appreciative. Okay, so Margaret Cross, one of our members, she says, I'm taking Oxycodone for pain after foot surgery, but I get too sleepy and get nausea. Ooh, I'm on my 10th day and would prefer to take something else for pain. Can you suggest something? Yes. So I'm going to say this. It's a herbal therapy. You can take the liquid herbals. I actually have a new link. They changed the back office website stuff. So it is C and then bumblebee, the first letter of that word, D. And that is what I'd recommend internally and topically. They have serums that you can put on the foot. I would also employ tea relief gel. That is arnica. I'd use arnica big time. So you're dealing with a lot of swelling. That's what's causing the nerve pain. 10 days is a really long time, for oxycodone. I mean, you should be on it no more than 1 to 3, depending on the degree of your foot surgery. If you had bunion surgery or really intense kind of bone related shaving, you definitely don't want to take it too long because you can get hooked on it. And you might even have to wean yourself slowly off of it, given you're on 10 days. Okay, so thanks, Letitia. She says, let's keep the thumbs up, going higher, like, and share it as well. Thank you. Let's see, questions. Okay. Mary's interested in the full body scan. Then the one thing when you go to find thermography is growing. Actually, before we moved, my mentor was moving and she approached me to actually look at buying her thermography practice. And I honestly started to crunch our numbers and we had an initial call, and then Brian's company moved him, and it was one of these things where it just didn't pan out. But I am a big believer. I would probably have had that business if we stayed. It's really good. Sunny Soul 29. Happy birthday, Dr. Melissa. You rock. Okay. Pau says, I have a mammogram scheduled for the end of October since my last one was done 3 years ago. Should I ask for an ultrasound instead? I have fibroids and dense breast tissue. Yes, you can. They may not go with that because of insurance coverage. I mean, this is one of these things where many of us aren't totally tuned into the fact that insurance is in control of our healthcare. So if insurance pays for certain procedures, those are the things that you're going to get. They pay for certain screenings. That's what you're going to get offered. And you don't often get offered what might be an out-of-pocket cost. So ask, and you may want to call your insurance and find out and just say, I have denser breast, denser breast tissue, and I always have to get referred out for a second scan. Can I just go and do that one scan? Sometimes there's authorization that's necessary. It gets really wonky. Let's see, Dr. Melissa, I don't eat. Okay, so Letitia says, I don't eat lots of vegetables like that and all. Plus, I want to eat it all the time too. Okay. Yeah, veggies. So veggies, I sneak my veggies in, and sometimes veggie caps, plant-based vitamins, and getting like spirulina and chlorella, the little green tabs. There are ways to introduce some of that stuff into your diet. Smoothies are awesome. Okay. All right. We've got a minute and a half on Instagram, and I'll keep going with my YouTube show. Okay. Nezranirina. Sorry, I botched your name. My hair is falling. Thyroid low, cortisol, polycystic ovarian syndrome. What can I do? Well, there's a lot at play there. I actually have a thyroid-related protocol that's available, as well as a PCOS protocol. Those are two purchasable, downloadable guides, so you can check those out. Low cortisol is definitely a factor, so you want to support your adrenal glands because it's often adrenal stress in its relation. But there's a lot at play, and then you've got the hair follicles kind of in this like stressed out mode. But there are a lot of things you can do. I love rosemary is a really good oil for your hair. It's good for your scalp. It'll invigorate your scalp. But you definitely change the shampoos you're using, reduce the chemicals. but you have to resolve the thyroid and the PCOS. It doesn't go away, but we live with it. Okay, friends, join me. Thanks for all the birthday wishes, you guys. Join me on YouTube and we'll continue on. All right, I got to go. Bye. Join me on YouTube. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I think it's the video ended. Oh, no, it didn't save it. Oh, shoot. Sometimes Instagram does that. I don't think it saved it. It didn't. Oh, well. Okay. Well, Instagram TV is not going to have a post today. Okay. So, fun with Brittany, D-Manos for UTI. I really always want to find out what's going on. The other thing, back to the UTI factor is sometimes there can be bacteria that gets in the bladder that will chronically cause an infection. And I've seen this with a lot of my patients where they actually have to have a scope and analyze culture of the bacteria, the bladder bacteria. And sometimes E. coli will get in there, especially if somebody has IBS and they have diarrhea. There's definitely particulates that can get exposed and travel up through. I know it sounds horrible, but it does happen. Okay, let's see. Let's see more questions. You guys are so sweet. Okay, so Letitia says, the doctors prescribed me with vitamin D, folic acid, and iron. However, I'm taking a supplement daily. What else would I need since I don't eat vegetables? So why are they doing that? Are they doing that because of anemia or hormonal imbalances? I'd be curious because there's probably a whole bunch of other stuff we can add to it. All right, Taryn had a doctor out with COVID, came back less than 14 days working, doing surgery, was here yesterday, now out today, sick again, told staff, reschedule patients out 14 days. Oh, no, really? Oh, God. Yeah, well, and this is one of those things where COVID, Taryn, recommend him to the Survivor Corpse page. I'm hoping he might get, that doctor might get a little bit more educated in terms of COVID, and there's definitely, especially in the surgery world, there's the God complex, like they're the masters of all universes. And so, he probably thought that doctor, I don't know if it's a male or female, but they probably thought they were done with it. And I mean, it takes people down for months, as we're seeing. Okay. Gout. Question about gout. Father had a stroke at 60, had some pain in feet. Daya, I've been dealing with gout since 6 years. Worried about it. And the underlying issue causing the worsening of COVID. Okay. So gout would not necessarily be an underlying predisposition or underlying health concern with COVID, but the stroke definitely. And so, he checked to see if he is on any blood thinners. He's probably taking Coumadin. That actually will help with COVID if there is exposure. Tracy says, my husband came home saying they have their first COVID case at work. They're doing pretty well there with safety, but it's nerve-wracking because our 25-year-old daughter and I are very compromised. I know. We are definitely in that. We're all going to know somebody. We're all going to be met with potential exposure. The best thing you can do is just keep up with your immune boosting. I actually have this little packet here, but like the little herbal zap, this is a great little tea here. Actually, let me write that down so I post that link to you. I can post that later. But that, boosting your immune system, clearing your home, especially with exposure, and it's very hard. Most people are not learning who has been exposed unless you're friends with the people at work. But, if you really are concerned, we do have studies that even mask wearing in the house is going to be very beneficial at limiting the spread. So that might be something to think about. Let's see. Oximeter. What's a good brand? I mean, honestly, like this is my little pulse ox here. I don't even know the name. Face Lake is the name of the brand on this one. But honestly, any of them are going to be suitable. You just want something that's going to be quick, accurate, in terms of accuracy, they're on point. And you can measure that too by deep breathing. Like I will drop my heart rate really quickly by stopping to talk, stop talking and breathing. And then also with the breath, you can actually increase your oxygen levels. So it's not uncommon for you to go 96, 97 if you're talking a lot, because you're not, inhaling oxygen. But if you're doing yoga, then you're going to have a really low heart rate and also really high oxygen levels. And there are times of the day too, when you test S. Smith, that you might be a little lower. Like sometimes early in the morning, we'll have our lowest oxygen levels, and that's common. Let's see. Yeah, so Rainbow Citizen, we don't do politics here. So check out another channel if that's what you want to talk about. Margaret will not be going back to physical therapy after one therapist took off his mask twice while I was there and another did not immediately put her mask on. Yeah, it's just, I hate stories like that. So a friend of mine in Texas went in for, I think, an echo. And the woman, her tech, refused to wear a mask and was complaining about the mask. And she might be a false negative COVID case. Something's going on with her heart. And so she's getting assessed. And, she was so stressed out about possible exposure from this tech. Like these people have no sense what they're doing to other people. And it's just, at the end of the day, this is such a selfish act of when everybody's walking around complaining about what the mask is doing to them, but having no sense that when you take your mask off, you're causing somebody anxiety. And it might be somebody who's dealing with cancer or some really serious illness that gives them issues anyway. And then they now are trying to deal with getting in and out of a store or quick procedure that's necessary. So it's really challenging. Okay, so Margaret says, my sister has been recuperating from shingles for months and is still experiencing a lot of pain and weakness. Chose not to have the vaccine. Insurance paid for part of mine. Yeah, I mean, it's out of pocket. It's so worth it. And, the other thing too is your sister can still, as soon as she recovers, she can still get the vaccine. But it is god awful. Recommend to her apple cider vinegar. In like big swats, like soak a towel, a rag, and just put it on those areas. That will cut that nervy pain. I can speed up that process, but even still, there's just so much. L-lysine is another one that's really good. Let's see. Can I recommend something instead of estradiol cream? Is it blended, Denise, or is it is that a compounded version? My mom has a hard time taking supplements and eating certain foods, including leafy greens, because they kill her stomach. Any tips? It sounds like your mom might have a bit of food sensitivities there, and it might also be stomach acid levels. So I would add in enzymes and even amino acids like Bragg's amino acids. Slantage, you got an Irish toast, which means good health to you. Thank you. Okay, Rick says, unfortunately, I was prescribed a low dose benzo 5 years ago for anxiety. I am hypothyroid. Any recommendations on supplements, etc., to help with the slow taper? I don't know what that means. Well, so anxiety, so just overall anxiety, omegas, vitamin D, and very good neurotransmitter related enzymes. So there are some neurotransmitter supplements, and I'll post links for a full script. I don't even think I posted the links when I went live today. Just kind of quickly trying to get going. So I would definitely add those to the mix. The hypothyroid definitely is another thing that can be an aspect at play with anxiety. So making sure, ruling out Hashimoto's, because there's a different kind of protocol with and without, but, iodine and really, adding kelp and eating more seaweed is very good for that, but also eliminating bromine. Bromine is a big offender for the thyroid, can be encouraging, but those two sometimes go hand in hand, anxiety and hypothyroidism. But there are definitely layers there. I actually have a thyroid related protocol that might be helpful for you. Okay, so I'm going to take one more question and then I have got to run for more birthday festivities. Okay, so Jenny from the Block, question, ACV, apple cider vinegar, is that for pain by itself, or if you have a blister, you soak with ACV? So apple cider vinegar has an amazing ability to change the pH of the skin. And there's a whole bunch of enzymes in it that are beneficial for pox viruses. So like a herpes cold sore, even genital herpes, shingles, and even, now children don't get chickenpox because they're all vaccinated. But chickenpox, like if I had it again, or with shingles particularly, you can do baths in apple cider vinegar, just like people will do with like colloidal oatmeal. It's less of an anti-inflammatory and more so something that eradicates that the intensity of the nerve pain. So it changes the way the topical layer of the skin is being addressed by the virus, if that makes sense. And what we find particularly, oh, Candy's girl, thank you, 1999. Happy birthday, Doc. Enjoy your day. Mwah, thank you. Cheers to you. Yay. So what I would say, I have to do a little toast. What I would say is with apple cider vinegar, what we find is it will move the pox virus through the blistering phase. The blistering phase tends to be like the lead up to it, and the blistering tends to be the most painful. So it's the most irritated, the skin, it's open wounds. It fills, it gets pus and blister filled. And that also is a major point of reinfection. So people will have shingles move throughout their body, and sometimes they've reinfected other areas. Like we see the eye tend to be a big point where people only realize like they're itching and scratching because it itches and it's painful all at the same time, which is awful. So the apple cider vinegar will eradicate that, but it speeds up the blistering. I can go from the nervy pain, and it will quickly move from the blistering into like crusty kind of resolution. And that's what we want. So that's where we see the apple cider vinegar help with that. Okay, so vaginal wall thinning. So actually your best bet, Denise, for vaginal wall thinning is progesterone. I know it's very counterintuitive, but you actually need more progesterone. And if you check out Full Script, I'll post the links as soon as this wraps. We have vaginal inserts of progesterone that are great for the vaginal wall. And I also love my AC solutions. They have a vaginal gel. It's a stem cell related gel that rejuvenates the vaginal lining. It's fantastic. So I'll make sure I post that. All right. So friends, I'm going to run, and I'm so grateful that you guys could join me this morning for our fun birthday Q&A live. So I'm grateful for another day with all of you, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. I will tell you more about our wonderful dinner and the fun festivities of today. I actually told Brian and Gabriel, I want to do a little tent, like sleep in movie night tonight in our movie room. It's kind of fun. So Gabriel's big into camping. So we're going to camp inside and watch some movies. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you all for the live chats. Candy Girl, Candy's Girl, and we have Donna. Thank you so much. And Clive, I'm so grateful. And also, let's see, we have Tanya. So thank you, ladies, for making my day fabulous. I'm so grateful. And for all of you. And Pat, thank you for the card. And I have our little birthday police in this card. How cute was he? All right. Stay well, friends. Tune in tomorrow. I will see you then. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great news that comes out today. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.